couple of weeks ago, I spotted this funky little machine in an antique shop not far from me in Collingwood in Melbourne. And I liked the look of it, but didn't really know what it was. So I started to do a bit of investigation. And when I found out, I thought, I'm going to buy this and see whether I can get this working or not. So here it is. When I got it, it was in pretty poor condition. It was pretty dirty and grimy and had been knocked around a little bit. But not surprising given its age. Have a clue what it is? It's in fact a Webster Chicago wire recorder. And as it turns out, wire recorders were popular after World War I until about early 50s. So they were only in the market for a period of about 8 years. And at that point, magnetic tape, the technology improved to the point where it became technically viable and became both and also commercially viable, and took over the market to pretty much the demise of the tape recorder as we know it in the kind of 80s period. So there's probably not many of these in Australia. Being an American device, it needs to have a mains transformer from 240 volts down to 110. And it came with all of this paraphernalia. So it came with microphone and a number of reels of wire. So if we have a look at it, it's a really funky steampunk looking chassis, all made out of copper, which is really unusual. So the electronics inside is a bit of a rat's nest. I've had a look through all of that and checked it out, and it appears to be pretty much okay, although I suspect a number of the capacitors are going to need to be replaced. And you can see it's a 5-valve unit, and there's the mechanism and everything behind. So I cleaned up and lubricated all of the drive mechanism, and what we might do now is just show you that in operation. So if I switch it on, you can see the main drive motor here and the little tyre which engages. And if I put it in play mode, the main take-up reel goes off, and in rewind mode, the original feed reel reverses and winds back. So that all seems to be working okay. So I've got a lot of hope around that, and you can hear the unit starting to hum, which is a good sign, but it also means that the capacitors probably will need to get replaced, which could be a future project. We've got the recording head here, record playback head, which is a kind of a little science fiction-y type device. And that plugs onto the back of the unit here. And so I took the top plate, which was a bit knocked around, and I cleaned that all up and repainted it using metallic hammered paint. It's come up really nicely. So we'll just screw the top of the take-up reel, which I also repainted. We'll put that in place so we can feed on some of the wire. So wire recorders apparently were pretty short-lived, as I said, but they lived on for a number of decades as the technology used in flight cockpit voice recorders, because the wire was much more durable than magnetic tape. It could withstand crashes and high heat and things like that. So this technology was used in aircraft for a number of decades until solid-state technology took over. So I looked up these devices, and in the US they sold for about 100 to 115 US dollars. So in today's term, in Australian dollars, that's sort of approaching about $2,000. So they wouldn't have been cheap. Right, and last there's a nice little Bakelite cover goes over the playback heads, which looks really quite funky. There we go. So I think we're ready now to fire this up, give it a smoke test and see whether it works. So as I said, there were 11 reels came with it. So each reel has got this really fine fine as a human hair wire, you see, and they're quite heavy, and they have about 2 kilometres per reel of wire, so there's a lot of wire sitting on that. That's why it's heavy, and that will give about an hour's worth of recording time. So let's just pop it on. That sits on the feed out reel, just like that, and very fiddly stuff because the wire just spools everywhere and tends to snarl, and I can see why the technology didn't last. Feed it round and through the clip it in, give it a couple of turns, and I think we're good to go. Let's see if this machine actually will work. Now we turn it on. You might see when it warms up, there's a magic eye here which shows the recording level, and it will glow green, but it's a bit faint these days. There it goes. And it fades off as well, which is a sign that one of the capacitors is probably not working there properly either. It should be much brighter than that. So you can hear the hum. We'll have to fix that up. So let's go. So this recording would have been made 70 years ago, and it's probably the first time it's been listened to for pretty much that length of time. And whilst it may not be super high fidelity, it's pretty good, pretty damn good for 70 years. And of course it's only mono, no stereo in those days. So it's going to be fascinating to find what else is among all these reels of pre-recorded wire. You might notice that whoever recorded them all meticulously recorded all of the songs that are listed on the that were recorded on the reel using Royal Dutch Airline notepad. And then I guess the next step after that is to see whether or not we can even record some ourselves, but maybe that's for a future edition. So let's just stop it now and rewind it, trying not to get the wire to tangle up. You can see the head moving up and down. It moves up and down to make sure the wire is evenly distributed on the reel. Oop, and there it goes. And yes, it's tangling up. Not a great technology. So there you have it, a Webster Chicago 1948 wire recorder.